Hi, I'm here at Southern Manufacturing with Joe Booth from Altus Group. So Joe, in your talk yesterday you were discussing how companies need to take a more balanced approach to their production operations. Tell us a bit about it.
Well, in 2024, what we found, and we've got benefits because we've got a large range, a really big supplier pool of really great suppliers.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So we have this unique ability to put in a full facility production site.
Yeah.
That means for us, if one process is not performing or being invested in well, others can be, and they balance out. So for us in 2024, we saw some really interesting trends.
Yeah.
And the trends were that I think companies are realizing that they've made lots of investments into SMT equipment.
Yeah.
They've got production lines that sing well, they're highly utilized, they're very automated.
Yeah.
But with the pressures of last year, actually not the pressures of last year, but of many years,
Sure.
we're seeing labor shortages, higher wages, maybe staff going back to Europe after the big referendum.
So getting skilled sort of staff is a lot harder than it would have been. Yeah.
Definitely challenging.
Yeah.
And so when I was talking yesterday, I was talking about every challenge being an opportunity for the site that reacts the best.
Yeah, okay.
And so what we're seeing is that sites are investing in processes that have been completely neglected in the past.
Right.
And so last year we had the record years for 4 of our key suppliers.
Yeah.
One for cold cleaning, we clean PCBAs.
Yeah, right.
One for PVA, we do conformal coating.
Yeah.
We had a great year for Science Scope, for their component managements and smart racks.
Yeah.
And lastly for robotic soldering.
Yeah.
And so we kind of scratch our heads and say, oh, what's that all about?
Okay.
And the thing that those 4 processes have in common is that they involve a high amount of labor.
Yeah.
And I think the smartest sites are looking at ROI, looking at what's been neglected previously, and thinking, okay, if my SMT is at 90% of where it could be, I turn the camera and I look at, I don't know, hand soldering, and I realize that that's at 20%. We haven't invested in it for a decade. Or I look at stores and say, you know what, that's arcane what we're doing.
Okay.
And so maybe the smartest investment for 2025 or 2026 is to look at those inefficient processes rather than something that's already looking quite nice.
So in the past, a lot of companies focused on surface mount, for instance, but like things that were more labor intensive, more fiddly, like through hole and so forth, they weren't really doing that. And obviously it was all great that the SMT stuff was going full tilt, but there were log jams elsewhere in their operations, and now people are being a little bit more, let's get everything up to a decent speed rather than just focusing on one thing. Is that how you...
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's 2 big forces. So one, a lot of the UK market is contract manufacturing.
Yeah.
Part of contract manufacturing is being a service provider and marketing your services.
Yeah.
So of course, what is the headline number? It's CPH.
Right.
That's how you can market your company. That's how you can bring people in, because I can place your components at 100,000 an hour.
Yeah.
There was also another force, which is people thought that THT or conventional assembly was going to phase out.
Yeah.
So why invest in an area that's going to phase out over time? But I think what we've realised is that THT is going nowhere. Power electronics is through hole, and there's
things like adding sensors and stuff. I guess most of these things a lot of them can't be surface mount. So it isn't going away. No. So you've got to find a better way to do it without it being labour intensive. So that's interesting. But as you say, then the focus has been just on having good numbers. But the reality is that it's a little bit of a fallacy then, because that's not the reality for the rest of the production then.
Think about the situation where you're a CEM. You've got a batch of 1,000 boards to make. It flies through SMT a day, half a day maybe.
Sure.
And then you've got to do the conventional side, so through hole population and soldering. You can't invoice your end customer because you don't have the staff to manually solder the through hole, or you don't have the staff that wants to spray coat the conformal coating. Clearly for me it's better to make a smaller investment in an area to automate, so you reduce the risk that you can still meet your customer demand. And the other thing that we're seeing is that those early adopters, CEMs that are investing early to solve these problems, one, they can move that big pain off their workload, but in the future for the rest of the machine lifetime time, every time that they quote using that automated process, they can either drive higher profitability or be more competitive against their peers, winning longer term contracts. And I think everyone wants manufacturing to come back from the Far East.
Sure.
Even they want it to come back from Eastern Europe. And so if we can be more price competitive against these lower cost regions with our history of like high quality, high service, then I think that's the way that we unlock this reshoring that everyone's looking for.
So as you say, I mean, everyone wants this reshoring to happen, and this will be much more likely to happen if we can do that, because companies will be more competitive, they're more likely to be able to meet their customers' needs in the time frame they need to. They're obviously, contract manufacturing is quite a tight margins involved, so you want to make sure that you're as profitable as you can be. So by keeping the risks of that are associated with manual labour and recruitment issues that they have, then that's going to solve a lot of those problems for them and put them in a better position.
You're bang on. I think a real world example, or kind of, let's not get too specific, but let's say that a contract manufacturing is conformally coating for their end products. If they don't have conformal coating in house, they might be manually spraying. They might send those boards to a service provider who charges them £5 to £10 per PCB to conformally coat the products. Well, there's a tangible amount of money on the table. The service provider is doing it at a profit. Someone has got to pay, so it ends up going to the end customer. So instead of charging the end customer that additional 13 plus margin, what if they brought conformal coating in-house? They could bring down the cost of that conformal coating service, making their offering much more competitive for the end customer, and making that want or desire to go to a low-cost region less and less. And so I think bringing something in-house isn't just about the capex for now. It's about having the service and then being able to sell that service into your market. So for conformal coating specifically with contract manufacturing, because very few are doing it in-house, if you're someone that takes the leap early, you can offer that service when no one else can, really gaining some competitive advantage through using service providers. So
you can make yourself much more attractive to the market because you'll be able to do those sort of services and basically do that at a more cost competitive sort of...
Exactly. I mean, if you were an end customer that had conformal coating really in mind, it was really critical. Being able to show that customer a conformal coating line that you have control in-house, expertise in-house, that has surely got to mean something, That's really got to add it when compared to a site that isn't, and they say, okay, we'll ship that out, So I think there's a big advantage in that.
Excellent. Joe, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Cheers.